recently you've been writing in the Cradle about a new monetary system that's in birth. The Eurasian Economic Union is spearheading this. They're in discussions. You just interviewed a prominent economist who used to work in the Russian government I think from 2012 to 2019, and now
Yes.
Sergei Laviev, and now he is the appointee at the EAEU. Could you tell us about this monetary system? Because this is not being talked about in the Western media, and the
Definitely not.
censorship definitely helps fuel what I think is a profound ignorance of the implications for how this military operation that Russia is waging, how the response by the West has facilitated, I think, just an unprecedented trend toward de-dollarization. I think many of us thought would happen a lot more slowly.
Yes, absolutely right, Danny. And it was quite interesting because this interview with Glaziev was republished by a lot of American websites. I think on Zero Hedge it went over 100,000 views, maybe even more than that, which is quite something, because Glaziev is a persona non grata and an anathema for 99% of Americans involved in economy and finance. Trying to sum it all up, Glaziev is in charge of the mechanism at the Eurasian Economic Union that it's a sort of equivalent of the European Commission in Brussels. They write policy and they implement policy. And this policy is at the highest level because we don't have, of course, a direct evidence, but it must have come directly from Putin and Patrushev, the National Security Council. Okay, let's go on. If we're driving a Maserati, let's go on fifth or sixth, and finally organize at least the lineaments of a new economic and monetary system, which will be based probably, according to Glaziev himself, a basket of currencies and gold as well, and energy. And the fact that Russia is linking ruble to energy, ruble to gas, and soon ruble to oil as well, and ruble to minerals. So when you have this connection of a immensely wealthy resource-based economy, which is the case of Russia, and not when you think of everything that has not been exploited yet across Siberia, for instance, it's nearly infinite, and you have a resource-based currency based on actual commodities of very, very high value. And you mixed with an economy, the Chinese economy, which produces stuff that is distributed and sold and consumed all over the world.
Right.
And you don't have an economy based on helicopter money, like our friends in the Fed or the ACB in Frankfurt. It's a totally game changer. Absolutely. Of course, the implementation is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be very complicated and long-term. We are at a very initial stage, which is Glaziev coordinating at the heart of the Eurasian Economic Union, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Armenia, and which is the fifth one. Okay, I will remember. Kyrgyzstan. Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Armenia, Belarus, and Russia. 5 members with some observers, including, very interesting, Vietnam. It's an observer of the Eurasian Economic Union. Indonesia is interested. This could extend to other Eurasian players that are already part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So what we could see more or less is that as soon as they have more or less the framework of the new system, it's going to start being implemented by Russia and China, with Kazakhstan as a very important player as well. It will extend to other important players across Eurasia. We could think medium term, even India and Pakistan, which are members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and certainly Iran, because these monetary economic conversations between Russia and China involve Iran, at least for the past year or so. Very, very close conversations. So this will be the embryo of exactly the opposite of Zoltan Poznar, which is very well known in the US, has been talking about Bretton Woods 3. This would be post Bretton Woods 3 or the anti-Bretton Woods 3. Nothing to do with Bretton Woods. It's Bretton Woods turned upside down and based essentially on the ruble, the yuan, and all of that backed by gold and commodities. So that's why this is a game-changing proposition, of course. It was interesting because among the comments in sections of American websites that republished the article, there were some very knowledgeable comments from people who are specialists from financial markets and economists, including Michael Hudson. One of the questions that I posed to Glaziev, I asked Michael. So, and Michael is very much interested in all that. So there is already, let's say, a small network of people, not only economists, across the NATO STAN sphere, no? That is very much interested. And I'm sure there are going to be discussions between them and some people in the Eurasian Economic Union and with Glaziev himself. Like Glaziev took over 3 weeks to answer the questions, and our messenger, he was saying, look, he knows he's going to do it, but he hasn't had time to do anything for the past few months, 2 or 3 months, in fact. He is at the eye of the volcano, totally, and that's why this is so important. And the Chinese, of course, because the Chinese are always very discreet and circumspect, especially when we are dealing with a development that is going to be taken by the American establishment as an economic declaration of war, which it is, and a financial declaration of war, which it is, in fact. So for the moment, this is being kept in a very hush-hush manner, you know. As soon as they have a draft, there may be an announcement, probably by the Eurasian Economic Union itself, with Russia and Chinese backup. But this is something for the next few months, let's put it this way. But this is essential because considering the response that the Russians were expecting from the letters that they sent, especially to Washington and also to Brussels in December, talking about indivisibility of security, that they needed a new security arrangement all over Europe and including Russia, the fact that Ukraine had to be neutral, a sort of Finlandization of Ukraine, and it could never become a NATO member, and the fact that there were responses from Washington and from Brussels. This precipitated the whole thing. So the monetary economic angle of the whole equation was already being discussed for a long time. And the prelude for all that is a discussion that started with the BRICS in the 2000s already. So this started when Putin, Hu Jintao, and Lula from Brazil started to, in the BRICS discussions, okay, how are we going to bypass the dollar long term? So this is a conversation that's been going on at the highest level for at least 15 years, you know. And now we are seeing soon we're going to be seeing the first actual fruits of the whole thing. It's really quite something. In fact, I hope that I'll be able to have subsequent interviews with Glaziev. He agreed to that, in fact, like keeping us updated on where the whole thing is going.